Welcome to another edition of Fantasy Basketball Weekly. I'm Amber Wilson, and joining me is senior fantasy writer Jamey Eisenberg. And Jamey, we are knee-deep in the fantasy playoffs. Dirk Povitsky injured.
Yep.
Worst time. He injures his left lower leg. What does this mean for fantasy owners? How are these guys out there going to deal with this?
Well, Amber, you know, we are, as you mentioned, the fantasy playoffs, so he's probably going to miss the next 2 weeks, which means you're most likely not going to be able to use one of the best players in fantasy basketball, the reigning MVP in the NBA, because of this injury, which was, very severe if you got a chance to see it in that game against San Antonio. So if you're looking for immediate help to replace Dirk, you can look at the Mavericks. Brandon Bass is probably going to see some extended minutes. I think Jerry Stackhouse will probably see a little bit of a scoring increase. But now, Amber, we're going to see how good Jason Kidd can really be with this Mavericks team, because now he's used to a team that doesn't have one focal point. With New Jersey, he had two guys that he had to get the ball to, in Richard Jefferson and Vince Carter. Now he's got to get the ball to Josh Howard, to Jerry Stackhouse, to some of these other players. Eric Dampier will probably see a little bit of a fantasy boost. So there are three players out there in Stackhouse, Dampier, and Brandon Bass that could possibly help you. But I think, if you have Josh Howard, you have Jason Kidd, this is a good time to see how they're going to be, especially this week when they have the Clippers, Denver, and Golden State. So three good matchups for the Mavericks to possibly help them get over this loss. Okay,
so no good news about Dirk. We thought we'd have good news to tell you about Gilbert Arenas. We thought we had him back. Not so much. What happened here?
Yeah, Amber, actually, I got a chance to talk to Gilbert Arenas last week, Friday. They came down to Miami to play the Heat, and, I went down there to speak to him and Caron Butler and some of the other Wizards players. So when you're looking at Gilbert Arenas, he was expecting to play possibly in that game against Detroit on Sunday, but most likely he was targeting this week as his return. Now he's even talking about maybe missing the rest of the season. He does have an opt-out clause with the Wizards, so there could be some, potential money situations, clouding what he's going to do in terms of his comeback. But I think the safe bet, obviously, is to keep him reserved this week. Keep an eye on what happens in the next couple of weeks, because, you may have him for a championship game. Depending if you're in a roto league, you may have him for the final couple of the weeks of the season. So I think just for this week right now, keep Gilbert Arenas reserved and hope guys like Caron Butler and Anton Jamison and some of the other guys for the Wizards can continue to produce at the level that they're at.
Gilbert chats it up with me all the time, too. I have it like that. If only I were you, Jamey Eisenberg. All right, Zach Randolph, here's a guy not injured, not getting any play time, just not helping out.
Yeah, he's missed the last two games because Isaiah Thomas is trying to play some of the younger players for the Knicks, guys like Randolph Morris and Wilson Chandler, So prior to that, they were continuing with this youth movement. Randolph only played less than 30 minutes in both the two games before he was sat. So I think going forward, you're going to see Randolph probably back in the lineup a little bit, as the matchup sort of dictate. Maybe he does come off the bench for the Knicks, but I still think you have to play Randolph, because when he's on there, as we know, he's going to shoot the ball. He's going to, he's one of those volume shooters, going to put the ball up whenever he can, and he's going to do a decent job of rebounding. So I still think you play Zach Randolph, but you sort of have to hedge your bets a little bit and not knowing what Isaiah Thomas is going to do.
All right, let's talk about injuries. I know you have a huge long list, of course, so I want it in alphabetical order. I don't want you to breathe. I want you to say backwards. No, I'm just kidding. Jump right into the injuries.
That's a little tough there. Well, we have our usual list. So keep an eye on Paul Gasol, what's going to happen this week. I still think he's probably going to miss a couple of games. As we'll always tell you, the safe option to keep him reserved. A couple guys in Sacramento dealing with some elbow injuries. You'll probably see them get back on the court. At what point this week, we're not sure. But Ron Artest and Brad Miller both dealing with some elbow problems. Michael Petrus, the forward for Golden State, who's really been playing great. A couple double-doubles, had a really good stretch the last 2 weeks, dealing with a groin injury right now. So guys like Al Harrington, maybe Andres Piedras, they could see some extended value. Shawn Marion still dealing with his back injury. Don't be surprised if he's out for the rest of the season, joining Dwayne Wade and Udonis Haslem, as the Heat, as we know, as we talked about ad nauseum, giving up on this season. And then Chris Wilcox dealing with a finger injury. He's probably going to be out the rest of this year. And Raja Bell dealing with an ankle injury, which will mean good things for Leandro Barboza. I do have some good news for you, though, Amber.
Okay.
Jermaine O'Neal could possibly be back this week dealing with his knee injury. Missed most of the season. As we know, O'Neal, big injury risk, but I still think you keep him reserved, but he could come back, which, maybe next week we could talk about his good performances.
Hopefully so.
Hopefully.
We're so used to talking about injuries, I thought you'd be able to do it any which way I threw it at you. All right, Jamey, thanks for all of your
My pleasure.
all of your insight. Keep your mouths right here at CBSSports.com for everything you need to know in the world of sports. If you missed anything here today, stop, refresh, and rewatch. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Amber Wilson. Have a great week, guys.